I'm going to give it to him so we get ready. He's about ready to start.
Test, 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 test.
Yes, I mean, Ben is starting first, so
Who is?
Ben.
Okay. Go for it. All right.
Sure.
I'm going to go start the camera.
All right, we're about to get started, so if you could grab a drink or a treat if you'd like. First off, I want to apologize for about the delay getting in. We just were really watching the fire code. I think they need the sound in the back there. Apologize about the delay if anybody got held up outside. It was just making sure we got the fire code handled and got the folks who had reserved coming in. We wanted to make sure they got in. So, but it looks like we got everybody in from outside. All right, good. Well, I want to thank you all for coming. It's about 6 weeks since we kind of did the shred and the first kind of release of some images and went out. We ended up with over 350 surveys come in on the website. So I want to thank you if any of you in the crowd did it and those that are out of town. But we got some great information and we're able to get some feedback. We've done a lot of meeting with neighbors and area business folks and civic leaders throughout this time. So I think we've got a lot of great feedback and hopefully we've incorporated some of those ideas and plans what we'll show you tonight. For those of you that haven't heard, obviously we've had Marina since 1982, I think. My father George bought that. We've got 6 generations of family throughout Southwest Florida. And I think most of those are here tonight. So we're really excited about, our long relationship with the island. I'm proud to represent them and how we can, really take this property and move it forward. We were thinking about it. I took it over for the family about 2 years ago and was thinking long-term, hey, what can we do with that property? The barns, the steel buildings were aging out. What could we do in the future? And, I was thinking out 3, 5, 7 years. And probably like everyone in this room, September 28th happened and, we started talking about what are we doing today with it. And the more I studied what happened with the whole island and the devastation up and down all 7 miles, 6,000 beds. I'm not sure the exact number of beds have been lost with hotels and Airbnbs and those type of things. And really studying the comprehensive plan and the land development code and where should development happen? We've got to get it back on the island. What's the right thing for the island? What's the right thing for this piece of property? And that's kind of how we evolved in this and really started thinking a little bit bigger and this is the right place for this type of development. And so, I'm sure everybody's got an opinion on that, but it's really kind of how we got to this point. So then we started bringing the vision together and I said, well, if we're going to do something significant, we've got to put an A team together to do it right. We want something timeless, something that 30, 40 years from now, you can look back on and say, hey, that's still here. It's the right thing. It complements the island. It does the right thing. So that's where we brought this development team together. And I'll introduce you to them here in a minute. And then it started 6 weeks ago with the shred. And we spent 5 days in the room and had community leaders and industry specialists from hotels and environmental engineering, resiliency, and with the be able to withstand hurricanes, land use development, every aspect of development like this. And we brought them together to get ideas, and then we opened it up to the community, and that's the 350 responses plus all the one-on-one conversations we've had. So we think we've really taken a lot of input here and tried to do it right. So with that, I'm going to introduce Galina. She heads up DPZ co-design. They are world-renowned in master planning, communities and developments, and the communities they've developed have 30, 40 years of lifespan in them. You can see them today and how they evolve and what they come out with over time. And that's what we wanted. We don't want something that's just fun for 3 to 5 years and then you're like, what happened? Why'd you do that? And so I think hopefully you'll see that as we go through the presentation. But I'd like to introduce Galina. How about a round of applause?
Oh, wow. Wow. Good evening, everybody. I feel a little bit overdressed, but I have my flip-flops over there somewhere in the back together with my dog. Maybe you have seen him. He's roaming around. His name is Blue. But most importantly, I have with me Javier Iglesias and Judy Bell. You know, these are my team members. They are associates at my firm at DPZ Co-Design. Just I had to say because you know Judy is a young mother, and we worked yesterday on Mother's Day. I have a son also, but he's older, so he could handle it better. We are happy to be here again. We are very grateful to Pink Shell Resort for welcoming us again and the hospitality of the whole community. Now we know our way around much better. This is our third time here. When Ben and Thomas came to us to talk about this project, we really love the idea. And we love the idea for several reasons. Because first, we thought that this will be a legacy project. You know, the families has been here for many generations, as you have heard his story probably multiple times, some people already. You know, if they do something bad, they're close by, many of the family members, so you can find them. So it's, and you know, and they also bring the next generations. You know, last time when we were here, one of the kids, you know, stood up and said, okay, well, where's the playground? And we're like, whoa, my goodness, we forgot about that. So now we put something in there, a splash pad. You know, it's a kind of sophisticated playground. We have found out around the country, actually, and around the Florida, these are such an attraction for families and for kids. It's like the water, you're next to the water, but it's different to spray from the sidewalk, from the pavement along the baywalk. So the other reason that we thought that this legacy project will be interesting is because it is in your community. Fort Myers Beach is dear to us, as all other communities in South Florida which have suffered through hurricane destruction. And our office is located in Miami. I came to this country in 1992. Guess with whom? With Hurricane Andrew. Actually, I arrived and the hurricane came 3 days after. So I had a kind of a first person experience, with what's going on when hurricanes come. So, and we have done a lot of projects around the country after Katrina, after other hurricanes, and we have dealt this with in many other coastal communities. So probably the very, very important things which we want to convey here is, and to create here is a project, a development which is resilient, which is strong, which is built for a kind of for the next generation. So it's a timeless place. Let's start here with some slides. How can we do a timeless development? It's if we have to do a few things, and I will show you later. There are probably two important components. We have to elevate and we have to build stronger as materials, and how we build our places. The thing is that to build stronger and to elevate and to kind of predict what the future can be, the place has to be economically feasible. It has to make sense financially. And this is, we want to say this upfront, because you will see that we're providing a whole range of basically community amenities and community, you call them benefits, but these are things which we are opening the bayfront, we're opening this site to all of Fort Myers Beach. It can be a very enclosed place. It can stay also as a marina as it is today. But what we are doing, we are providing this wide access and walkability along the bayfront. With this project, we're thinking that because of its location, and that's a kind of the third important thing, that location where it is, it's like you're landing basically from the sky bridge, and it's right there. It's so close to the downtown, it makes sense to complete the downtown. The northern anchor or the northern edge of Old South San Carlos Boulevard, it's one is the bayfront and the other one is the beach. And you have this you can actually have incredible different experiences from the north all the way to the south. Of course, the south is the beach, and what will be happening there is important. And then you go all along to the north. The bayfront is a very different experience of the water. It's not the beach. You can experience it much more directly with the marina, with new piers, with kayaking, with tours of environmental tours, or fishing tours, the shrimping component, which is recovering, all these things which are much more direct with the water. The beach is a very different experience, and in between are the merchants, the local businesses which are strung along Old San Carlos. So this is a great way to anchor the north and the south. We were also thinking about incubating smaller businesses. We are creating, and I'll show you later, these arches, which is a kind of became the name for this project, arcade within it, which we can incubate smaller startups, and they can continue later, or they can have some spaces there. The Baywalk is, kind of something which is, we think it's an important and a kind of central element of this development. And of course, something which we have been talking about for more than 40 years now. It's about walkability, it's about connectivity with the rest of the community, and of course about transportation and how you move around with all types of mobility. So Ben alluded already to the process which we have been through, which is, we started with meetings with neighbors. He and Thomas met with them. We had a kickoff meeting and site visit. We had a session with the council, LPA, county officials, representatives of these entities, civic leaders. Then we had the charrette, which was 5 days. We had, what he didn't mention is that we had almost 20 meetings. It was like a meeting after meeting, very interactive. We were drawing, and I'll show you that. We have also, after the charrette and during the charrette, we started with a community outreach, very, very robust community outreach. And this hall here with all these people, with you guys here, is a proof that it was effective. You came here to this open house. We call this event an open house, where we share with you where we are, our progress materials, our progress plans, and we would like your feedback. Then we will be preparing the next steps, obviously, which will be in a month or so, or 2 months, or whatever the time is required. We will start an entitlement process with to include comments and other notes and feedback from the community. During the charrette, some of you came by and you know how it was, but it was 5 days, a very intense, a kind of interchange of ideas. And we usually explore a variety of different scenarios, and I will show you some of them in a kind of a brief way, because what we usually do is we draw ideas, like 5, 6, 7, whatever, and then we see as a group, and as the specialists begin to inform these discussions, we choose the ideas which make sense. We carry on the ideas which are kind of good ideas. Like, for example, the idea of a baywalk, which already our clients had a long time ago. They're like, well, what about this bayfront, which is almost 1,000 feet? Depends where you started, but if you started from one end and you go all the way, to the end and a little bit of the canal, you have almost 1,000 linear feet of a waterfront, a baywalk. So this idea was incorporated in all the plans which we were doing, and we also sometimes we try with everything which is on the table, like what will happen what will happen if we have, okay, that's not the one which I know. What will happen with as the current situation? We know that the marina was destroyed. What will happen with if we do what is the status quo, what is available today in terms of zoning, in terms of the comp plan and all the numbers and the metrics which are allowed today. So we will demonstrate that. And then we go through different iterations, and we saw that it's a very logical thing to think about this project as part of the downtown. These are some of the results from the community outreach and feedback, and Ben will comment on those.
Yeah, I think this is what I was referring to earlier. We had over 350. I'm not sure what we're up to. I think we had maybe another 15 or 20 today. So getting close to 400 surveys completed. 75% of the surveys that were completed are looking for rooftop bars, hotel access, public access. That's number one, 75%. Water ferry, 70%. Retail shops, gifts and clothing, 67. Everything above 50%. Marina uses, green space, parks, farmers market, local grocery, coffee shop. All those are incorporated into this plan already. And those were the ones, all over 50% of almost 400 people that surveyed. Those were one of their primary areas that they'd like to see in the development. So I kind of laughed at this, so I don't know if you guys will, but the lowest were, Jim, I'm sorry, but one of the lowest was daycare and youth center. So I'm not sure what we feel about kids, but post office, dog park, pharmacy. We don't like to take legal drugs here, I guess, but there's a lot of input, and I think, but what it does, it really does inform us as we go through and how to incorporate it and how we see the plan. So one, we want to thank you for the input and keep doing it. It's going to stay open. We're going to try to keep taking input and feedback as we go through, but that's what we found in the surveys. Oh, and so which topics do you think should be addressed in this development? And number one on the left-hand side is transportation solutions. Again, water ferry, how we park, the parking we're offering. I think you'll be excited to see that. What kind of traffic are we going to create, right? So when people see this, first fear, rightly so, is, hey, traffic's already bad. What's this going to do to it? So I think we have good solutions to that. Enhancing the views, right? Right now, that marina is looking at the side of boat barns mostly, especially when they were all up. And I think the whole island has always been fearful of not being able to see the water. And we think we've really addressed that. Not only does it add to the resiliency, but also opens up lines of sight and views to the bay. And more parking options, which we touched on. And what type of activities on the water do you really want to see? Number one was more boating, paddle boarding, kayaks, fishing charters, environmental education, historical tours, and marina facilities. These are your top ones. All these are incorporated into the plan. So we think we're touching on the right things. Now, how we get there, it's a little complicated, and that's why the professionals handle it. Oh, great. All right.
All right. Oh, that's a good one. All right. All right, and of course we wanted to share with you, some of our first impressions. This was when we came for the charrette. We could not go to Snug Harbor or to go to the food trucks on the water, closer to the water, actually, to Times Square. Times Square, of course, and see the downtown, and of course the Wahoo Willis and other places. We walked around and we were enjoying the wonderful breezes, the wonderful sunsets. And we can imagine, what a family coming here, visiting, or, they live here and they experience this environment, how great this is and it can be. So we usually, wherever we go, we are asked, and this happens in every community. They say, yes, we are unique and we want to be Fort Myers Beach, we want to be Naples, we want to be Fort Myers. So Fort Myers downtown is very different than Fort Myers Beach. We know that. That's absolutely correct. You know, every place we go, they have the desire to be unique, and it's absolutely understandable. And we have been very respectful to that. Sometimes we also look at the bigger picture. We look at the region. We look at the state. We look at the know-how, which is a kind of has been built through the years, you know, through decades and centuries in some case. And here in Florida, we have a very long history of places like one of the first towns in America, for that matter, which is St. Augustine, which was built very, very reasonably, you know, with concrete block. You know, it's a kind of more massive, and they have balconies and stuff like that. But it's just the idea of how you construct, you know, looking at also Key West, you know, looking at other places where there is a tradition, there is a Floridian tradition. It may not look exactly like Fort Myers Beach, but there is a kind of a knowledge or a toolbox of how to deal with hurricanes, how to deal with other, you know, with storm surge, flooding, et cetera, et cetera. So we have been a kind of expanding a kind of our know-how. We have been building in Florida, on the West Coast, on the East Coast, you know, around Miami, in the Panhandle, everywhere in Florida for 40 years, as I said. I don't know whether you know Seaside. I mean, it's a kind of an interesting project in the Panhandle, but these places have been for 40 years, and they have withstood a lot of hurricanes. You know, they had some, you know, Mexico Beach, which was, you know, devastated. It's very close to Seaside. It wasn't hit, you know, directly, but Seaside has been hit before, almost like a straight shot, and it has survived. Also projects in other places, like after Harvey in Texas.
And one thing I do hear, and I see a lot on the comments, especially on the social media forums, is we don't want the beach to change. You know, this is going to change the beach. Well, I'm getting ready to have my 40th year class reunion this October, right? I want the beach to be what it was when I was 18, and I kind of don't want to be 18 again. But you know that you know, it just doesn't happen. The beach was a lot different right before the hurricane than it was when I was 18 years old. You know, we used to be able to drive Times Square and jumping in and out of cars and do all those things. They said, "Oh, that's going to be horrible when they close Times Square down." Well, guess what? It worked out pretty dang nice to have it all pedestrian. When they took the old swing bridge out, they're like, "Oh my God, that's going to be horrible, having a sky bridge." Well, guess what? The number one thing everybody in this room wants to protect, the view from the sky bridge coming over to the Gulf, right? So it turned out pretty nice. You know, if you go back to the Calusa Indians, you know, the mound house, they knew how to build resiliency. Hell, they were putting shell mounds together, putting their villages on them. And, you know, then the Spanish came. And then, you know, just think of the history, right? So we all want to keep our best memories, and that's the thing we have in our mind. Let's keep the best parts about it, and let's plan it for the future. Let's plan it for future generations. And I think, and that's what we see here, right? I mean, it's a great place. That's why we're all have been here. We're attracted here, but we got a chance to rebuild it and build it right. And that's what we're trying to do in this development, is bridge from the old to the future. That's why we came up with the arches. You know, to me, it just kind of hit, right? I mean, so, you know, I remember as a kid sitting under those arches trying to get on the beach, and the swing bridge breaking down and all the other things that, you know, would go on. But so like that would be pretty cool if we could incorporate that. And that's when you just give an idea and you give it to the right people, something really good comes out of it. So, but I just wanted to address that because I know that's all of our concern. What happens to the beach? We don't want it to be something else, but we want to be a better version of what we were. So.
And it's also another interesting point about places, about towns, about, you know, cities. You're a town, you're a small town, and we saw it loud and clear in all of your comments that you want to keep the small town feeling, and that you incorporated in 1995 with this feeling in mind, you know, with this thinking in mind. Well, in places and in towns, actually, sometimes there is the place for many things. And as I mentioned, you know, Old San Carlos Boulevard can have the Times Square and the beach on the south, but it can have something slightly different to the north. You know, it doesn't preclude that with this project, you're going to have the same thing everywhere. You can incorporate different character, different feeling, different experiences in different places. And it's, you know, you have a very lengthy, how many miles? 7 miles? island, so you have basically a variety of opportunities, a variety of options how to develop it. We also, as we mentioned, we heard very loud and clear that transportation is number one of your issues. And we have with us Rick Hall, who has been in Florida and working in Florida transportation for more than 50 years. And he helped us kind of conceptualize transportation, traffic, kind of in a more holistic way. Not just looking at, okay, we move with cars and we need to accommodate all the cars, and we put like one stone and we need to provide, one room, and we have to provide 5 spaces for this room, or for just a building, and then we have to triple, and so he's looking a little bit more holistically about the transportation of the island and how to connect it to the larger region. Rick.
Thank you, Galina. Hello, everybody. Glad to see such a great crowd. Galina mentioned I've been working in transportation for 50 years. I finished at Virginia Tech and went straight to Tallahassee, and I've been there for that amount of time. During part of my career, I worked for Florida DOT, and I worked on the Miami transportation study fresh out of school. Then I was transferred over to work on this coast. And I actually started the Fort Myers transportation study in the 80s, I believe it was, did the first transportation study for this area. So I've been around quite a bit in Florida, and I'm registered in 22 different states to practice transportation engineering. So I'm really glad to be here because this has the character of walkability that I learned in Seaside. I went to Seaside to do a DRI, Development of Regional Impact. I did the traffic impact study for Seaside, and I went in as a DOT transportation engineer, and I came out a new urbanist working on walkable communities because I was so impressed by the way DPZ was doing the walkability and the scale and the small block size in developments that they were working on. So that's what I bring to this group and to this place, a deep understanding of what it takes to get people walking again, and riding bikes and taking scooters, as well as driving automobiles at a reasonable safe speed. So cover a few things. Okay. People come to Fort Myers Beach for a myriad of reasons, but part of it is there are a lot of other activities in this region that are pretty attractive. But Fort Myers Beach, when they want to come to the beach, they come here. There are walkability factors that we've observed for many, many years. And I put these, this is kind of a David Letterman countdown backwards. Number 10, narrow streets help. And number 9, street trees help. When you have street trees, they provide some shade, but they also go by the driver's eye at a certain pace and let them subconsciously know how fast they're moving in their motor vehicle. Low traffic volumes helps with the walkability. Sidewalks are not even in the top 5. And let me tell you why. Interconnected streets, a web of streets, a network of streets is very important to walkability, because then you don't just get out and take the same single road every single day you walk. You can get up there and take a left and a right and move through a grid of streets, have a much more interesting walk. On-street parking helps walkability. For people that are not fortunate enough to visit or live here, can come to the island, park their car, 4 people can get out and walk to 4 places each. So you have 16 walking trips just by that one parked car being at the edge of the road. A mix of land use is important. If all the land use is the same, if it's all one big office park or one set of hotels, then there's nothing different to which you can walk. Buildings have to come right up to the street. If you go to a Walmart or many other big box stores, The street is here, and then after 6 bays of hot parking, you finally get to an air conditioning door. So you're not going to find many people walking along those 4 and 6 lane arterials and walking to go into the front of a big box store. The buildings have to be right up at the back of the sidewalk. So when you're finished with one restaurant, you step out onto a sidewalk, and then you go down and you go do some shopping or visiting other people. But the number one walkability factor is small block size. Small block size. You have that in spades. You really have a great grid street system, especially in the downtown area. This is a street pattern or a street design that has worked itself into our practice after many, many years of understanding walkability. First, we'll start at the center line. Okay. We'll start at the center line and work out. The lanes shouldn't be any more than 9 or 10 feet wide. The interstate highway has 12-foot wide lanes where you're going 80 miles an hour, most of you, I guess. And so all you need is 10-foot lanes. And in fact, if you have any more, subconsciously you go faster and you endanger the pedestrians. Safety is the bottom line. Then we have street trees, again, to give you that sense of motion of how fast you're going. Bicycles are in the lane with the slow moving cars. We've done this before, and we would not force the bicyclists to go into a lane where the traffic was too fast for them. Seaside itself has no bike lanes adjacent to the parked cars. The drivers either go in the middle of the lane, or if they're very young or very old, then they get on the sidewalks.
And this is on site. This isn't a public street, just so you're aware.
This is going to be implemented just on the eastern side of the project itself. And this will be, it'll mimic many of the streets you have in your town already, but it'll inform designers of other new streets or rehabbing streets of a really good way to put it together. These could be food trucks parked right there to serve pedestrians there. There are many ways you will be able to get around, many ways you can get around now. Let me cover this with the next slide, which is a little close up. There's a tram that goes on the northwest part of the island, just short distance, and that's fairly frequent. And they're going to reinstate this in July or August. I've talked to Lee Tran people, and the trolley system takes you a much longer distance, and you can get on that trolley and get in the roadway. And the new one that's creating a lot of excitement is the water taxi. We've identified a number of locations where a water taxi can stop and let people off, pick up new people. And it'll run on a continuing basis, a fixed schedule. They have these in Fort Lauderdale, and they're very successful. Over there, you pay $15 for a hop-on, hop-off situation that lasts you all day long. Boat captain that was running a water taxi before the storm came through, and he was charging about $15 a person to take you from place to place. Captain Butch, that's right. I talked to him, and a fine fella. And he bought his gasoline at the Marina. So there's walking, biking, motor vehicle. We're not going to eliminate the motor vehicle for most of the network. We're just going to get the drivers to drive slowly, meaning 25 miles an hour. So the pedestrians are safe and comfortable. Even some of the new micro mobility scooters may show up. Electric bikes may show up. Those are being used pretty extensively in other places around the state of Florida. Okay. I get it. Okay, there are a lot of publications that deal with the transportation aspects that I work with on a weekly basis. And this one fella, he has a website called Mike on Traffic, Mike on Traffic. And he published this in 2017, a trip generation at hotels. And local data, he said, proves to be the best. So on a daily basis, he found the typical suburban hotel got about 4 trips per day per room. An extended stay hotel, he measured it at just below 4. And a downtown hotel with valet parking. So with an unusual parking arrangement in a downtown setting, he had 2.41 per day. The most important measure on this screen, though, is what happens in the peak hour. The peak hour is when you would have congestion or not congestion. And he measured 0.2 trips in the peak hour in the morning and 0.13 in the evening peak hour per hotel room. That's a pretty small number, but that's what happened in his experience at a downtown hotel with valet parking. So now I've done an analysis for this hotel, proposed hotel or two, and I used the ITE rate of half a trip per hotel room, 0.6 trips per hotel room would be generated in the PM peak hour, in the evening peak hour when things are more congested than otherwise. And if you run 400 units through that, you get 240 trips in the PM peak hour. But then you have half of them going out and half of them coming in. So the higher one is outbound, people leaving the hotel in the PM peak hour. And it's not just people. These measurements are for not just the guests, but they're for the UPS truck, the mailman, the garbage truck, any other vehicle, staff that are working at the hotel, people providing food to be cooked in the restaurants. So it's a wide variety of users. But if you take a walkable, bikeable percentage of 30% for that PM peak hour, which I think is very conservative, I think it'll be more like 40 or 50% of the people that are in that hotel will be making a trip downtown to a restaurant or downtown to watch the sunset or whatever. But if you took 30, that means 70 are left in their motor vehicles. And so I took this 137 and measured it times 70%, and I got 96 PM peak trips for motor vehicles. And so that's the highest number that we can imagine going in and out in the evening PM peak hour. And that is not that much of a volume. When you distribute it into coming and going, AM and PM, then your congestion disperses throughout the day and throughout the network. So that's what we could assume. A regular traffic lane, like one lane on the bridge, takes 600 or 700 vehicles per hour in its capacity. You can actually count, and they did 600 or 700 or even 800 vehicles per hour per one lane, and we're talking 96 going into 2 different entrances at the hotel. So the traffic congestion is obviously a concern to everyone. It's a concern to us. But what we're saying is the dispersal that you get through a fine network like this, with a downtown that's only a quarter mile away, very walkable distance, that you're going to have I think a very pleasant experience, at least not a horrible experience on the street system in after this place is built.
Thank you, Rick. And, I guess a couple of the conversations have been on, the water ferry is the big one. So right now we're in conversations with other marinas, other businesses to to get that up and operational, what that would take. So we're definitely a participant in that, would love to have that. So, but as a marina, would I want a water ferry showing up at a marina only? Not really. I don't have anything to offer 40 people getting off a catamaran, ferry boat. I don't have anything to sell them or do, restaurants or anything. So that's part of a project like this, right? So in the other marinas and different spots where those pickup and drop offs would go, are, from what we've heard, are very excited about the opportunity. What would it take with zoning and different things with dock modifications and really making parking availability? But really imagine linking the north and south end of the island. You could take a water taxi or ferry boat ride in peak season. That'd be pretty awesome. So we think that's a great solution. We've had meetings with the large employers, Pink Shell and Margaritaville and some of the other big employers, Bay Harbor, about how can we shuttle employees on and off the island more efficiently rather than have them sit in traffic and cause traffic. Because it's really hard to hire and maintain employees if they can't get to and from work efficiently. Guests from the airport, can we share in shuttles so the hotel guests can get to the island efficiently and get to the different resorts or hotels that they need to get to? So we're working in conjunction with a lot of the other partners on the island to try to find real solutions to get things done. Part of that will be working with FDOT. You're not going to sit on a shuttle van if you're going to sit in traffic, right? They prove it every day. Nobody will get on the trolley if they've got to sit in traffic. So is there a way to get that fifth lane maybe dedicated or some other answer to it? So we're working hard to get that done. But transportation, I mean, look how close it is from the beach. So going over the Sky Bridge, you're doing 2 rights and you're in our parking lot. And we have all the parking we need plus another 90 above our required parking. So we're going to overpark our spot. So when they come down there and they do find, get to it, they're going to be able to get in, get a parking spot, get going. But we're going to, like every other resort here, highly recommend they don't drive a car there. Get on a shuttle, bring an Uber, do those type of things. And once they get there, it's a destination resort. They don't need to drive. They can go to restaurants, they can shop, they can go to the beach, they can do all those things. And they have other, the trolley, the tram, they have other options as well, and the water ferry. So, you push that down in mid-island or somewhere, now they've got to get all the way down there, and then they have to leave and go shop. They have to leave to go to a restaurant. They have to leave to go do different things. That creates more trips. Being in the downtown district really allows you to get somebody on the island. Yes, it will create some traffic coming to it, but that traffic's coming anyway. It's how quickly can you manage it and get it somewhere where it needs to be. So we feel really good about that.
Oh, one more thing which actually Rick mentioned today, which is quite interesting about the transportation and about people coming to the island, is that Fort Myers Beach is a kind of further south in the whole state, and people come from, actually they come by the airport. I mean, some of them drive, obviously. Not that many of the hotel guests will be driving from Miami or the East Coast. Not many will be driving anywhere from Florida. And it's too far away to drive from all the states which are basically the market for the Panhandle or the market for the kind of the northern portions, or for Miami for that matter. So basically people will be coming by airplane, so there will be, not many of them will be renting cars and coming to drive around Fort Myers Beach. They will be probably using a shuttle or using other public transportation for that matter. So,
but we're all real, right? That traffic isn't going away. It's not going to. I'm a firm believer we could build 10,000 parking spots on the island tomorrow, and it would work, and everybody would get in a parking spot, and then suddenly the rest of Southwest Florida and everybody else would realize there's no line to the beach, and what would happen? They'd fill it back up again. I mean, it's just inevitable. People want to go to the water and the beach. So the question is, how do you get development that handles it quickly and efficiently? The demand is just, it's never ending. So we all want to cure it. I truly believe you could tear that bridge down and they would get in bathtubs and row across the bay. It's just going to happen. So, but I think we've got a good plan that can help and do it in thoughtful way. So
We better get to the plan. This was a kind of lengthy preparation.
sorry.
So these are the existing conditions, and you can even elaborate more on them if you want to a little bit, because we have the
Well, I know
scenario one.
everybody loves blue and green, right? So, but you can just kind of see how it works. But as you come over the bay and the Sky Bridge and you look, what we're proposing really goes in line with what the Marina Village is. That's the timeshare right off of Snug Harbor's docks right there with the brown roof. That's Nervous Nelly's,
Oh,
right?
sorry.
Yeah, there you
Marina,
go.
yes, of course.
So height-wise, we're talking about in line with that at our highest point and some varied height. And this is really where we feel this type of capacity really should go. It's part of the downtown district. The old San Carlos, you know how successful that is. People love it. They walk up and down the street. The only problem is they don't have much to go to at the end. You got 2 restaurants on each side and a 60-foot wide public park. That's it. Imagine if you could really activate that bayfront and really leverage what you've got on the other end with the pier and Times Square and Margaritaville, and now Old San Carlos. You're leveraging all that infrastructure, the comp plan, the land development code. This is where you want this type of development. It's the downtown district. This isn't Mid-Island. This isn't some other spot where this is kind of like you're dropping in something foreign. This is kind of goes in this spot.
Yeah, this is okay. So this is, we talked about, I mentioned, scenarios, that we always draw some scenarios, what it can be if it is rebuilt. Some of the barns were basically taken down by the hurricane, and
Right.
this is currently, this can be the,
Right.
the
So
buildup.
we just wanted to show a graphic. So
This is
obviously, if we
Marina.
go back as a marina, we're going to build dry stack storage. That's what we've done for 40 some years. We're perfectly fine doing that and being a full service marina. We love the business. We're just thinking there's a bigger vision. We think that it fits the long-term plan of the island better, doing it differently. But if we put big barns back up, this is somewhat what it would look like, right? And if I'm a neighbor behind it, I don't know. Would I rather have the lines of sight to the water and views and breezes and all the other things, or do I want to look at the side of big barns? That's what we've been looking at. So we're trying to find ways to really open that up, make it so you can see the water, you can access the water, you can get to it. Because legally right now, it's a private property. If you're not a customer of the marina, we don't even, we could fence it off. If you don't have a boat there, that's really what it's for. We're trying to convert that and open that up to the public. So now you get thousands of people having access to the water in a personal way. So not to be over dramatic, but it's like, this is kind of what goes back up if we stay just what we are. So we just wanted to show you a comparison.
Well, we also, during the charrette, obviously, we started drawing different scenarios, and we had, we had more like 7, 8 different plans, master plans, drawing. Every day we were producing another generation. We had like 5, 6 designers here, and we went through different ideas. As I mentioned, one of the focal and very important idea was the baywalk. It was a kind of the organizational element, or the spine, which, all the plans were going this way. We talked about how to orient the buildings, how to provide for more breezes, for views, for the rest of the neighborhood, how to create this small block pattern, which Rick was talking about, how to make it more connected, more pedestrian friendly. And all the, architects and planners work towards this goal. We also had brief conversations about buildings and what they can do. If you have a building and it's, let's say, I don't know, 5, 6 stories or whatever the bulk is, something similar to Marina Village, which is next door, what is the positioning of the building as a volume? And there are several ways to think about it. You either put it as a kind of a slab on the water, and you kind of basically block everybody behind. You block the breezes to some extent, unless it's, very high up. So that's one way to do it. There is another way to make a slimmer, to basically put it vertically, And then there is also the same footprint, the same building, you can put it perpendicularly on the beach, perpendicular on the amenity. So you allow basically more views for more people. You allow public access to this amenity. In this case is the bayfront, not the beach. And you allow for people to walk to this amenity. Of course, you don't have that many direct views. You don't have, if it's a straight line, you have many more direct views. So that's why in some cases you can kind of weave some of these pieces of building. So this was a kind of the placemaking, if you wish, or sculpting of the buildings while we were doing this exercise. We knew that in all cases we need to be elevated. We need to be elevated above BFE. We need to be, which is the base flood elevation. We need to actually learn from the last hurricane, which I really have a difficult time pronouncing, Hurricane Yan. And which is, we have to see this line. For us, this is the red line, and maybe go even further up. Because some of the buildings which actually were not flooded at all, were with the floor elevation higher than that, and it was basically Marina Village, and we're learning from that experience. By doing that, we provide this plinth, or this, understory, we call it understory, where you can put parking, you can put deliveries, you can put, some stuff which can be blown away, you can provide even, fire truck access, so that's why we are going not excessive, but we're going to that level, and we are basically trying to create a benchmark. We are trying to create perhaps even a model for what, really resilient and timeless construction is. And it may look to some extent scary because it just looks fairly tall, this first understory. This understory also creates something else, which we are actually giving to the community, and that's the deck. This is the level on top, so it's not only that we're creating the continuous walkway, the continuous bay walk, but we are also creating this deck, which is, you will feel like you are on a yacht, on a boat, because you will be seeing the water deep in kind of the whole bay, and the boats there and everything. So you will be at the same level as the boaters, not like you are down only on the bay, on the pedestrian level, but you're also up, which is also open for amenities, restaurants and cafes and all of this other stuff. So let's not continue with the draft, but like to show you basically our plan, which we have been working on for a few weeks after the charrette. So this is with the red is basically, you see the site for your orientation. This is Old San Carlos Boulevard. This is 3rd Street. We also have this parcel, which is on Old San Carlos and 3rd Street on the corner. So basically, there is some exposure along Old San Carlos. So there is a kind of the possibility to signal this new project off of this intersection to provide some extra parking, and also to provide a kind of a gateway to the whole community, and also to signal that the arches are coming. We're calling this project Arches, the arches, in memory of your historic arches. They probably don't look literally like the Coquina, rock, really beautiful arches of the past, because they were, built in the 20s, I believe.
We're working on her on that, so we're not done.
Yes. So the arches which we are, yes. And I know that you will be rebuilding them as a real monument. So we didn't want to create like a literal, a kind of a literal copy, to literally copy them, but to have a kind of the memory of the arches in our development. So the arches actually are here along the Baywalk. So I will start from here. I'm kind of walking all over the place. So this is basically our arches gateway. You come in here. Imagine that you're coming. Let's say you're coming with a car, with a Uber or some hated car, So you're coming here. This is your drop off. And it can be a valet service. We are hearing, we just saw that from Rick's presentation, that when you have a valet service, it's a kind of a faster situation, and then you capture people. People just don't want to, deal with their car anymore. So they're coming here from with like really grand stair as pedestrians, and they are coming here to this level at a beautiful plaza, which we are calling the welcoming plaza. This space here, we call it Arrival Square. It is very important that when you design a place, even a parking lot, you think about what space you want to create. This can be just an ugly drop off, not ugly, but like pavement and all of that. But if you put a fountain, if you put a tree, if you design it as a plaza, it can be really a beautiful, welcoming arrival space. And then you have here a very sculptural and monumental and a kind of imposing stairway. And then you come on the second floor. And from here, you see an amazing view. And we'll demonstrate this for you. Then you can continue here. This is another plaza, which is actually down. You're all up here on the arches, on top here on this deck. But this plaza is down, and this is the splash pad where kids can play, downstairs, they can be looked at from above. It's right this space. And then you can continue down along the Baywalk. There are some gazebos, pavilions, retail pavilions right here. And then you come to this plaza, which is again up. You can have here, these are steps, and you go up to plaza, which is the so-called Sunset Plaza. We call it the Sunset because from here you can really have views of the sunset. We also are proposing a small structure, an open pavilion, which we call the Sunset Chapel, because we heard that your first church, built in 1938, was called the Chapel by the Sea. Exactly, the Chapel by the Sea. So we said, well, the Chapel by the Sea, not literally, it's not going to be a church. It's going to be probably a small structure, but we thought that it's a kind of in honor of that first church, which is
And to
right
back
here.
up, that splash pad, I think it's called Gemma's Playground somewhere. Oh, she's
Yes.
preoccupied. All right.
Yes. And then, so you can see that we have all this green, which is along the Baywalk. We understand that when you have, a very wide pedestrian space, if you don't have trees, if you don't have palm trees, if you don't have greenery, if you don't have even, a material which is nice for walking, and also not only, pavement, but like semi-pervious material will be actually ideal, then the walk is not that enjoyable. So we definitely are paying a lot of attention on canopy and on vegetation. This Baywalk actually continues all the way to this end, where we have a kayak launching pads, at least a couple right here and here. And then you can continue your walk all the way behind the community, and we call this a green belt. And we will show you how this can look, and it may not look very wide here, but there is plenty of space in the back where you can have a jogging lane or a path, and also planting, and kind of continue this loop all around the community. We counted that our bayfront is about 1,000 feet. If you start counting here, let's say there is like this little cut here. So if you start here and you go all the way up to here, it's about almost like 1,000 feet. And if you complete it, you will have about 2,000 feet, which is, almost half a mile of a jogging route. If you do it, twice, then you're, a hero. Yes, then you can go to one of these places which are around on the second floor, and then this can be your Rocky moment, the very sculptural stair, and you can end up right here at this place. We have restaurants and we have cafes, and I will show you a little bit more on those. In this area, because it's a roof plan, we're showing the coveted rooftop bar right here, and we hope that it will not be only one. We are thinking maybe 2 or 3 if there is such a desire for rooftop bars, and they can be, of course, priced in a way that you have, let's say, two different types or three different types, in terms of price point and possibilities. Maybe somebody will show you, we have a picture, actually, the bar functioning almost early in the morning. So what kind of what kind of clientele this will be is also interesting to see. This is interesting. In this area, we have a garage. It is not enough currently, with all the requirements and all the things which we hope that we will achieve. It's under putting all the parking here in this pedestal is not enough. We need a garage to have basically to have enough parking spots. And we thought that it will be really nice because the extra spaces can be used by the community, and then on top we can have a great amenity with a pool, with probably a small spa, maybe like a lounge space, and maybe another bar right there. Let's Yes, let's go here. These are some of the diagrams which explain in more detail, the idea of the parking level here, which is the so-called understory. We have the lobby of one of the hotels here and another one here. We're thinking about maybe 2 or 3 hotels, because with one hotel you will be covering basically one market, one price point. If we have 2 or 3 hotels, then you have the possibility to do a kind of from a more extended stay to middle range to more luxury.
One of the things we did here is people, 400 rooms. Oh my gosh, what are you doing? And that's too many. And my response first is, what about 400 scares you? Let's talk about it. But what it allows you to do is have varied price points, right? If I put 100 hotel rooms on there and knock out a whole marina, how expensive do you think that hotel needs to be? Really expensive, right? So if you want varied price points in restaurants and bars and hotel rooms, you have to create a product, a development that allows for that. So that's where the size comes into play. With that size, you get a lot of benefits. If you do it right, it's also a great amenity to the public. It's not a detriment. If you just put a big slab up there and just put 400 rooms in a big solid wall, I'd probably agree with you. It wouldn't be too attractive. But if you do it right, we think we can really provide price points, accessibility for everybody. Fort Myers Beach is, the great part about it is you don't know who's got a lot of money and who doesn't, and nobody really cares, right? But there's a lot of people with different price points and appetite. So we want to provide for that. So we think that's a good bridge to the future.
Then this diagram shows the amenity level, and all these different colors are different things. Like, for example, the hotel circulation. Okay, well, that's a kind of the blue. There are rooms. There are the rooms are very limited on this particular level. The most important ones are the flex commercial, which is in red, and also the yellow, which are the food and beverage, and they can be interchanged. We haven't talk directly to, hotel operators yet, in a literal way. Okay, what kinds of restaurants, what kinds of price points you would like to cover. But we know that all of this space here with the plazas, this is the Welcome Plaza and the Sunset Plaza, and here the whole deck is basically public space. Not that many hotels provide this as a public amenity. So basically, it's the parking deck with the baywalk, and the whole upper level is a public amenity.
And as you can tell by the product, we see it getting quieter as it gets to the canal and gets closer to the residential. As the project goes back towards Bonita and Harbor Street, it gets quieter. Things kind of calm down, make sure the residential neighbors. I didn't bring it up earlier, and I probably should have. The 3 things that I think will make this thing work is if it's a benefit to the residential neighbors, it's a benefit to the business community and the island as a whole, and it's financially stable. If we can do those 3 things, this is a good project. If any one of those things get out of whack, it doesn't work, right? So we got to find that middle ground. But so noise, I think, and you can see the green belt. Is that what we're calling?
Yes,
the walking path, that creates some buffer, and also there's a turnaround spot for Harbor Court, Bonita Street. So we think we're adding some things to the site, but I think you can see how we're trying to be thoughtful as we go through it and how it affects people next to us. The action really is more towards Old San Carlos. That's where the action is. People along that, no, that's where you walk and drink and go to dinner and have a good time.
And here, this one is a typical room level, but it's a kind of very clear, the gray is a kind of below and these rooms are above. You can see that the idea about the perpendicular buildings on the water, there it's not 100% because it will be too monotonous if it's only, buildings like this. There are some, an L-shaped and this is a U-shaped, but you can see that the tendency is that you see from the water, you will see a kind of the narrow side. We are basically sacrificing some great views. If we put the building like this and make it, single loaded or even double loaded on, then you have basically direct view. But in this case, you don't have a totally direct view, but you actually almost invite the community behind you. You basically extend the value of the amenity, the waterfront, deeper into the neighborhood. You share the bay walk, you share the breezes, you share the views, and we'll show you how we do that. Then the next one, these are diagrams which we usually do to basically study the place. I mentioned view corridors, and frame views, and these are our main view corridors on Harbor Court, on Bonita Street, and also here. It's not a straight like a tunnel, for example, here you go up the sculptural stairs and then you see the view and then you can go down. So it's like something interesting is happening. Humans are kind of interested in events. It's not just to walk by. They never like to walk by a parking lot. We call like big or like a big blank wall. We call these elements a pedestrian shadow. It's not pleasant to walk by a parking lot, let's say, or just, but when you have events like this and destinations, it's interesting and people are attracted to it. This one is the vehicular network, as Rick was showing. This is 3rd Street. We will be coming in on both on Harbor Court and on Bonita Street, and also this newly created street. So the more connectivity you have, the more dispersal you have. We don't channel everybody, so it's not a bottleneck in one place. We can say, oh, we are going to come, oh, everybody will come here, but then it becomes a bottleneck and it will spill out, outside. So it's the more connectivity, the better for.
And we're really focused and try to keep as much traffic off the residential roads as possible. So now we're really orienting off of 1st Street, off Old San Carlos, in the corner of 3rd Street and Old San Carlos, and bringing them in that way. So down the residential streets, trying to slow that down and make that maybe more service vehicles, a few employees, different things that would need to come in the backside of the development. But really all the entry and exit would happen before they get to those residential streets.
I have these actually larger here. We talked about the bay walk and the potential, loop, pedestrian loop or jogging loop. With the blue is basically the plaza level circulation. So you can see how many possibilities of walking around this property you will have. There are many. Probably certain areas here may become more private. Going to the rooms. In the hotels. But all of the blue and the green are basically public accessibility, including here where you come and then you come to the level of the hotel circulation. And then we have also another diagram where in yellow and in this pinkish color, we are, suggesting the 2 levels of public access. Okay, here these are basically the 3-dimensional drawings which represent, when we explain it in plan, it's probably difficult to see it, but this is the Arches Gateway. This is old San Carlos Boulevard, and this is 3rd Street. And this is this parcel which we can provide either a small corner store or cafe, a brewery maybe on the 2nd floor, and then the arches which frame the parking lot, which I was telling you, it's not a pleasant thing to just walk by a parking lot. You need some kind of an interest. In our case, the arches with a bench on the ground, kind of at the bottom, and some trees and bougainvillea on top provide shade and also kind of introduce you to the entrance of the Arches project. Then the next one, we are highlighting the arrival square. We want to call it the arrival square, not just the drop-off. And the arrival square, here it looks a little too massive, if you wish, but it will be a fabulous place with a big arch where you go up the sculptural stair. You see the glimpse of, you know, of the sky even from far away. He's reminding me that I'm getting too long. You know, I'm talking too long. Usually he does that. You see the parking on the side, which actually we think that it can be a parking garage with a green wall. You know, there are several examples, and we forgot here to put some of our references where you create a green wall for the garage with the amenities on the top floor. The next event is obviously the Baywalk. The Baywalk with the Bayfront plazas. You see this red line, and this is how it is presented. You know, this is the marina, the edge here. This is the kind of strengthened seawall, some steps going down, people sitting around. These are the arches. Behind here is the parking, but it is basically, this space will be a useful space. We were talking about today about the possibilities of a market, farmer's market, where you can pull in with the truck here, and then you have your structure already there because you have this arch, which is, you know, deep, 15, 17, I don't remember exactly the dimension, you know, depth, where you can put your stalls and people can walk and be in the shade, you know, with a few awnings. And you can see in the distance the little tower at the Sunset Chapel.
And this is under the Arches Gallery is where local vendors, food vendors, retail shops can really get their start. And we can keep affordable space with some shared back of house items, maybe shared coolers, freezers, dry storage. And that really allows local vendors to get up and get going. And maybe they grow their business and they end up in one of the other facilities in this project or somewhere else on the island. So we think it's a great way to be an incubator for local businesses. And again, this type of development allows you to have some more affordable space in the right spot. We think it adds a lot of character to the Baywalk.
This one is Harbor Street framed view. Basically, it shows a view along Harbor Street and how you see the water and how you allow the breezes to go through. This is a bridge and a connection to the building on the west. This is basically walking from the south to the north. You know, there is one hotel and then the other hotel. We have been contemplating about color. You know, we had first, you know, all buildings very, you know, kind of pale white colors, but then we thought, we have heard from you, you know, that you like colorful and laid back and all of that. And we started introducing color. So you will see the introduction of color in many of our renderings. We were also thinking that, you know, the idea of a nautical element, like the deck of the yacht or the deck of the boat, and some elements even in the building, it may be interesting. Not all of them, maybe some of them, or at least the deck, which is at the front, can be introduced. Also, just to point one thing here, these houses are represented as if they're already lifted up. So, you know, they were, you know, we took a kind of the liberty, and we saw one house which was rebuilt a kind of with the 3 stories, with the understory and then 2 stories above. So they will be elevated if they are, you know, when they are.
And when you think of the size, at first you're like, wait a minute, those are pretty tall, but you got to realize what was already there and what's going to go back up there. It's going to be a boat barn, right? So that's the alternative, is now and you don't see anything through a boat barn. There's no breeze, there's no light. Now you can, when you're coming down the street, you see the bay down the lower levels, you see the sky, the breezes come through, and the accessibility to all the amenities. That's where we think it adds a lot of value to the neighborhood. And, you know, I'm sure, again, people have different perceptions, but it's going to look something like this, or it's going to be a boat barn. And that's kind of the alternative.
Then this one is the Sunset Plaza and the chapel. Kind of the view is from this gallery space right here, from a restaurant, like right here, and you see the chapel. It can be in, you can see that this illustration is a little bit in a more a kind of cottage type looking building, maybe with some wood, some more articulate arcades. And oh, this is probably blue, my dog right there. Again, I think that none of our renderers put the sunset, which is a missed opportunity to show how these spaces will be in the sunset. The rooftop bar, of course, we had to show that one. And we have another three-dimensional drawing. The previous drawings were by hand. This one is a kind of a 3D animated rendering. And we'll show you at the end, we'll show you even a movie, like how you move through the community. It's a little a fast pace, but you can experience it. You can see here, this is the bay walk. This is the second level, this deck where you can have more outdoor seating. This is the hotel, you can see it here. And this is the rooftop deck. I mean, deck and bar. So, and the building itself is, these are the two levels, understory and the amenity level, and we have 4 stories above. So this is the maximum which we have been looking at. You can see here where we are right now. Then we have the new marina. This is a view of the updated marina with the new piers. We have been in discussions with the marina leadership, with Gary.
I'm not sure if
company.
the pier redesign is actual, but we're
Yes.
it's aspirational still. But
It's aspirational, exactly. We know that this may not be exactly like that, but we'll follow the rules. And this is from this new public pier, how the buildings will look. Here, this looks a little kind of thicker, but these are awnings, which for some reason didn't get any color. They're white awnings. But this is basically, this is the tallest volume you can see. You can see that up to this level, this is the amenity, you know, the arches, and then the amenity level is up to here. These are both tall floors, you know. You want like this one here in a Pink Shell Resort. This is the amenity level. And you see how comfortable and how great it feels when you have very tall ceiling heights. You know, when you begin to say, oh, I don't want tall, but okay, fine, but don't define the heights by feet. And this is a recommendation everywhere we do. You know, you can talk about floors and you can talk about maybe parametric, say, okay, maximum, whatever is the number of stories. Don't say feet, because with feet, you know, people try to, you know, pancake their construction inside. So it's good to have a good amenity level at a reasonable height. And you can see here our attempts to introduce color. We're not saying these will be the colors, as we are not saying, you know, this will be the final design, as you know, the hotels and the operators will be changing things, you know, but we had to illustrate the concept.
I think your dog's whining back there.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
But
Let's
if you point out if you look at the seawall now, we're talking about elevating the ground level up. Now we know what really the risk is, right? So we're proposing to bring that elevation up, create that bay walk at a height that's now safe and resilient. You drop down to the floating docks and really get accessible to the water. But then you've got that high first floor where the understory and the parking is. And so now you don't have all your mechanicals up on the roof. It allows for really nice views when you come over the sky bridge, allows for rooftop bars, green roofs, allows for a lot of other things. You start squishing things down and it gets ugly really quick. And it doesn't get really functional. And that's so in what height does allows you to see the blue sky between those buildings. The option is to turn the building sideways. We can put it lower, turn it sideways, fit the same number of rooms. No big deal. It's pretty ugly, no view, no benefits. it becomes a private property. Then you just kind of lose a lot of the quality of the development when you do that. And that's, I'm learning more and more from them. But that's what these, going perpendicular to the water and allowing those breezes and the views and the sun, the sunrises and sunsets and the walkability along the bay and around the property. Now it becomes really vibrant and interesting. It's not just a block hotel.
Ben is becoming excellent at planning and architectural jargon. Yes, he's learning all the terminology. That's great. And this is, this is basically an aerial from high up, again, to underline the idea of connectivity with the rest of the neighborhood and how the buildings are actually showing their narrow side towards the water. You can see here that we tried actually with the building, the tallest building, which is more or less the height of the Marina Village. Probably we're a few feet higher up because we thought that maybe a metal roof in this area will be nice. We can make it flat, but it felt like it looks better, like a kind of a more South Floridian look. And then we tried to kind of almost reduce the volume and the height towards the residential area to the west. Again, also the more quiet activities are in this area. The kayaks here, the chapel, and the bar, and the more active use is closer to the downtown and the old San Carlos Boulevard.
These photos will be available, so you don't have to take pictures if you don't want to. I mean, if you want to get them out quick, that's fine. But we're being really transparent, open all the way through this process. So you'll be able to pull them all off of archesbayfront.com. So everything we're showing you, you'll be able to see.
Let's see the next one. Oh, we have a few more. This is the Bonita Street view corridor. It is, we had to create a bridge on top to connect, the amenity level. So this is the bridge, and then the Bayfront Plaza, which you go through the arches and you come out to the splash pad.
Gemma's Playground.
Gemma's
That's
Playground
back.
is right there, and there is a kid with a dog, not whining, I guess. Then the Baywalk, again represented by another. Basically, it's very similar to what you saw before with the incubating spaces, and probably we'll need some more canopy trees right here, but we didn't want to. And then this is basically the arrival square, which I showed you before, kind of looked really massive. It's in reality, this is a more precise drawing because it's three-dimensional representation. It's actually part of a movie than the other drawing, which was so flat, and you never see a building like that flat in that from this perspective. We have a few slides here, and I'm probably not going to go in a lot of detail about resiliency strategies and green infrastructure. As I said before, it's probably from all the things which we need to do to be resilient and to create something which is for the many generations and to be a timeless place. We need to do two very important things: to elevate, because there is no way around it. It is about surge and about hurricane activity, and you experienced it very recently. So we have to elevate. That's number one. And then the number two will be to build very strongly. There are other ways like green infrastructure, which, for example, here in orange, green, and this color, which is kind of pink color, all of these surfaces are pervious or semi-pervious. The green are rain gardens, and I'll show you how this is detailed. So you have permeability. Some of the runoff water goes there. The pavers are, cobblestone. We have dealt with this type of material for a long time, so we have used it. And this can be actually even the parking spots, the parking spaces under the in the garage, they can be also semi-pervious. So by calculating the permeability of our site, we are finding out that it's almost 50%. We can get semi-pervious or pervious. And this actually substantially attenuates, another jargon, this is an engineering jargon, attenuates the stormwater runoff in comparison to the current conditions. And this will help some of the flooding along 3rd Street and along the other streets and along actually in the larger surrounding neighborhoods. This is actually very conceptually describing the stormwater routing and what it does and how it will actually improve the drainage, reduce the flooding, ponding conditions within all adjacent areas. Of course, it has to be calculated and designed, but we have the ideas and the support of an environmental engineer to do that.
And meeting with the residential neighbors behind the property, we did find that they're still having flooding and ponding on 3rd Street, even in normal rain. So we think we can be part of that solution. I don't know if we can be the whole solution, but I think with this development, we can push forward ways to get that water off the streets on normal grounds.
And I actually forgot a very important number here. Today, nearly 100% is impervious, because it's just the paved area and the barns. And we're talking about 50% pervious, where basically the water can naturally be stored or run off. So that's one, this one. And then here it's explained in a kind of a more precise engineering language, the need for rising, kind of elevating the whole site, how you can actually control, the runoff better with the pipes and how you can put them inside this area, as well as this very high floor of the deck, which I was explaining that, if we look at the base flood elevation and then the hurricane, and then if we add on the fire truck and other things, then you go really high, but also helps very much with the resilience and storm surge.
And the quality. I mean, look how nice that arch gallery is. Imagine if that was 10 feet high. It would just be smushed down. It wouldn't be very inviting, but that really becomes a great place to come in for training or get in the shade.
The
and
light comes
for
in
the
and
local
also
vendors
shade.
to do their business. So think about that throughout the complex or any complex. When you start smashing heights down, you start giving up a lot of quality pretty quickly.
And then this is a kind of the technical drawing, which shows, you can see here, the understory. This is basically the BFE, which is required today. Here, this was the hurricane. This is the truck. This is where Marina Village first floor is. So we are somewhere right there, where Marina Village first floor is. So it's not something not seen. It's not something we are suggesting which nobody has seen. You see the top floor right there, and you see the lobby, the amenities, and these are the 4 floors of hotel. Basically, you can see more or less from this drawing, you can see that this level, which the first one is necessary for resiliency, the second one is amenities, which are shared with the whole community, and this is the hotel. It's almost 50-50 if you look at it in volume. And these are all the other, kind of the explanations on the green infrastructure side, how the storage and service runoff and the aquifer recharge when you introduce rain gardens and more canopy, how you can do stormwater trees. It's just the specifics and the kind of the know-how which has been accumulated through many hurricanes in Florida. And this is, again, resiliency strategies, the summary. And I was talking about elevation and flood-resistant construction, the 2 most important things for us to have any kind of project for the longer term. And do we have more? And I think that this is the last image for now. But
Yeah. Do
Ben,
we have the
yes.
video?
Oh, and we have the video, which Judy will help me put up. It is a fast video. It's a kind of somebody's almost jogging, running, because they had to put it within the 70 seconds, and we wanted to see many views. We wanted them, okay, do here, but it cannot be actually And you can see this is, this is Marina Village. This is the hotel. We try to do a kind of a variety of rooftops. We have green roofs, we have metal roofs, we have roofs with the pools, roofs with amenities, without amenities. Here, this is the rocky stair. Here you go up, you are here, you see the water walking here. You can say yes, right there. Yeah, I made it. Then this is one of the, yes, this is the Bonita Street. Here the splash. Then this is the other one, the harbor court, where it's with the chapel you see on one side. The green belt in the back. It's right here. And this is a very fast walk in front of the Baywalk. And that's it. And we is it on a loop, or we don't know?
So if you're not asleep, I know you may have a question or two. So we're definitely open for questions, comments. It can be positive, negative, in between, whatever. Yes, that's health and resilience. Yeah. I think elevators will definitely be from the ground floor up. That would be an option. Those are kind of the visual signatures. Elevators aren't always sexy to look at on a
No,
fly
we
by,
have
but
them. We have them we have vertical circulation everywhere. Where there are steps, you have to have an elevator for sure.
And actually, you brought up a good point. So the pedestrian development is really the way we're planning to do curbs and different things, make it really easy for elderly and handicapped to get around the property. So that is first and foremost. I mean, we know the clientele, and you need all those options. So we're not going to skip it. Total height, we're right comparable to Marina Village. So that is
the Marina Village top of elevator. This will be our probably top. 76 feet from NAVD, which is the new datum, measuring from sea level.
the reason it's hard to answer some of these questions, it's from where, right? So that you get in a little danger zone sometimes when you say X amount of feet, and is it from base flood level? Is it from the water line? So I'm going to let the experts answer those directly. I'm not going to be evasive.
I showed it, but I forgot to mention that this is our, the Marina. We have, actually, I can go back.
Well, this is kind of we're kind of wrapping up the public input part of it tonight. We've had it open for 6 weeks, and we're going to keep taking it. But at this point, we're going to make final adjustments based on what we hear, and then we're going to start going for the entitlement process. So that as soon as we're ready, I don't know if Jim Ink's here, and I know Bruce Strayhorn is handling our land use attorney work, so we're ready to move forward. So we're predicting that to take most of the rest of the year to get the entitlements done. And then at that point, and we didn't really bring up too, this is master plan and architectural kind of guidelines. These aren't the final buildings. There's a possibility for the local architects to really put their final spin within these parameters. This is kind of the guidepost for them, but then they can actually add, a little more Fort Myers Beach type of items and things that are appropriate. So if we get the entitlements by the end of the year with no major problem, then we would do construction documents, final going for construction permits, and that will probably take to next year. And then, construction would start thereafter. So probably a couple of years in the process, a year and a half, 2 years. Yes. So very good question. Probably the biggest loss that we potentially could have if we were able to do the full development would be our dry stack. So there's no way to keep lifts going along the bayfront, get public access and do that. So I would say a couple of years easy before our existing barns would go down. So, but that is a loss for sure. You are correct. So, well, you wouldn't have to going in our property now. If you go back, you'll be able to enter up the third and Old San Carlos right there and come into our property. And we'll have sidewalks all the way. You can come off of Old San Carlos on the sidewalk on our property and go right into our development. Well, the pedestrians will be on the sidewalk. Let's go back. Yeah, I mean, remember the road that Rick had shown in the traffic where you had the bicycles with the cars? No, that's the road on our property. That's the road we're building in off of 3rd Street, right by the corner. So that's the kind of walkway you'll be able to go right in off of 3rd Street into our property without going through the neighborhood. No, we don't have any control beyond that, so we can't extend the sidewalk. Okay, I got you. Yep.
It should be extended as a sidewalk on 3rd. You're saying the 3rd.
Yeah, so we'll be building the sidewalk along here to come in, and that's the road that we showed you was right along here. So going on past, hopefully there won't be a lot of traffic because we're bringing all the traffic in here or through the 1st Street entry. So the traffic through the residential side, our goal is to keep it as low as possible. That is probably what would still come in through Harbor and Bonita, but that's pretty low volume overall. They're big, but they're not coming every hour unless you guys drink a lot of beer. I mean, so. But yeah, we do see some deliveries and service stuff.
Yeah, some deliveries will be possible to come here.
Yeah, and we'll try to stage it during times, we want to be as respectful and as possible getting it through, but our goal is to pull as much of that traffic, pedestrian, bike, and vehicles out of the neighborhood if we can. Parking garage is right underneath the pool. The pool's like the 5th floor up. So it's 4, is that right?
Yes,
4 levels?
4 levels and
so that's structured parking under there. And that's got the green wall, I think you saw the ivy and things you had on the one photo. So you would come in, drop your vehicle here. We would valet park either under the whole complex or in here. Yes. Let me start with the hardest one first, the traffic. We have had FDOT in the room and other employers and have started that conversation. So the only way to really solve on and off the island, they've already got that pickle about or oval about that's going on at the base of the bridge. That's already, it's already in progress. So not a lot we can do there, but we're working with the other major employers on workforce shuttles coming in and guest shuttles, and that's how we can pull traffic off the roadway. But to do that, we've got to have dedicated lane. If we're going to set them in the same traffic, we're going to have as many riders as a trolley does, which is that, right? So we're hoping the trolley can get a dedicated lane. We all share the same dedicated lane. Emergency vehicles, or workforce and guest shuttles, and other major type of shuttles.
There will be some circulation on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd under the bridge and using Crescent as part of it. Say if someone is in one of these hotels, they go down to Publix and they come in, they can turn on Crescent and then use 1st, 2nd, or 3rd under the bridge to get back to the hotel. And one of the things that I would recommend to the town is that they take those one-way streets and make them two-way again. Every time I've measured, I have a speed gun right there in my briefcase over here. And I've measured them all over the country. And every every one-way I've measured is faster than a two-way every time. So two-way slows traffic down, and it helps that circulation of getting to where you want to go instead of going around your elbow to get to another street.
And yeah. Well, and I think if you could get this capacity in this location rather than spread out in other parts of the island, that gets off the bridge pretty quick and gets right into a parking stall if they were driving there, right? So I think that's another benefit. So where you put your capacity of rooms is important. And that's what the downtown district was meant for. It's right at the base of the bridge. It's got the new roundabout. So you get them off and get them where they need to go faster rather than sitting there and jockeying back and forth and then moving multiple times during the day. The noise, I think you can tell we really are planning to be as respectful as possible going forward. We don't have specific noise studies yet, but we're going to design these things to be as quiet and to the neighbors as possible. So, I mean, I'm not anticipating having a rock bar, rock band up there at 12 o'clock at night. So I think there's normal ordinances in the town, and we plan to abide by all the normal ordinances and to really be thoughtful where we put the noisier type of activities. Again, our goal is to get them up towards the water and towards Old San Carlos, where most of the activity already is and should be along that bay walk. So that's our goal.
Other questions?
All right. Yes, sir. Say that again. I'm sorry. Yes, that's two-way. We have 30-foot easement there, and so we anticipate that being two-way. I wouldn't say we have it yet. That's probably a detail we haven't really gone into. And when you go to sustainability and water and all types of things that we can look at. So I think again, these are the kind of the master plan, but I think that's a good topic is what we're going to do environmentally and sustainability from electric power and different things. So to be honest, that's probably a little more detailed than we were getting into than here, like what size elevators, all that type of stuff. That's going to come in the when we get to the hard stuff. Yes, sir. I'm not sure if I understand. Say it again. Right. I think you're really got a miscalculation there. We've lost thousands and thousands of beds that are never coming back, right? Well, hopefully in some places where they're meant to be and designed to be, right? So you've got all those. What's the percentage, Thomas? It was Airbnb versus hotel. Or Jackie, when you all know it's 60, 70% or not hotel rooms. Most of those are not coming back. And if they are coming back, they're coming back really expensive. But you all know you're rebuilding your houses. By the time you go up and you get your setbacks and you build, to rent those rooms back out is not going to be the same tenant you had before, right? So that bed count's going to go down. If we don't have bed count on this island, you're not going to have the restaurants, you're not going to have the bars, you're not going to have the retail shops. All those businesses are going to get crimped if you don't have beds. I mean, that's what drives the economy here, right? And that's the jobs, that's all the other things. So we've got to get the right number back. 400 rooms is a drop in the bucket. It's not even remotely close. And I think there's a fact of what Hurricane Charlie, I don't think the island ever got the room count back after Hurricane Charlie, is a fact I just heard recently. So pre-Ian, the room count never got back to Charlie. And look what Ian just did. I mean, if you guys don't understand, that's what really got me motivated to do something bigger. There's a huge void. You turn on every bed that's available. This place is going to come up this fall. You know, Diamond Head will get going. Margaritaville is going to open. It's not even close. We're so underutilized in beds. We're not going to meet that demand forever. I don't think. Now it depends on what we do on those nodes, but there's a lot of bed loss for tourists, right? Not residential, but the tourist beds have been vacated. And when they come back, they're going to be a whole different product. And this is where we can put scale and price variety in, so you can get a broader type of customer. You go down really dramatically in room count, again, that rate goes way up. So I think it's total opposite. Yeah, no, I see what you mean. Well, if everything else was static and we're adding 400, I would agree with you. But you were down 6,000, right? And maybe 2,000 of that's going to come back when the hotels come online. And so, but all that bulk, that 4,000, that's up in the air, what that's going to be and how it's going to come back.